Okay, so I've got this tree all cleaned up. The rest of these leaves will fall off once we get a first frost, but until then, I'm going to let them stay here and collect a little bit of extra energy for this tree. You can see all the figs have been removed, so these little pieces will dry up and fall off and leave a good sealed connection or part of the fig, or the tree, I mean. Now, this is also a good time to label these trees. You can see I've got these metal labels on here to say what kind of tree it is, but they tend to disappear. So what I like to do is take a Sharpie or a paint pen and just write on them. Just like this. This is not permanent by any means, but it'll last until spring at least. And I'll do it on a couple trees, or a couple of the branches, in case one dies. And this is just a backup, so I can make sure I know what kind of tree this is. I prefer paint pens, but sometimes you gotta do what you have handy, and since I forgot to buy some, Blackmagic marker will work pretty well. It won't last as long, but the paint pens you can get at, I usually get them at Home Depot. If you go down the paint aisle, you can usually find some paint pens. I just use white. Doesn't seem to matter what kind you use. I do like the ones with the finer points on them. They feel like they don't blur the letters together when you get too much paint. So, yep, so that's labeling, and this tree is ready to just kind of quietly go into hibernation here over the next couple of weeks. And once we have that hard frost, I'll start moving them into the garage. So, and get through the rest of this. I got a lot of work to do here to get this orchard cleaned up. And you can see some of these trees. That's a white Texas everbearing over there. It doesn't seem to have gotten the memo that it's time to go into hibernation. It's putting out green growth even, I think. Let's take a look. Yeah, it is, unfortunately. So if you see this, this isn't great. You want this tree to lignify this wood and all turn brown. So this new growth, it's not good, because once that frost comes, it's going to kill that off. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll pinch this off just like that. And if you don't know how to pinch, take a look at my how to pinch fig trees video. That'll kind of explain it all. See, this is all new growth here. Not what you want this time of year. So you want to put an end to that. Just pinch it all off. I mean, it's not a huge deal if the frost comes. So what will end up happening is with that heavy frost, all this green growth here will die back. And then the fig will actually just put out new growth here in the spring. So it's not a huge deal, but it doesn't hurt to go in and pinch it and say, hey dummy, stop growing. Time to go to sleep. And it'll help a little bit. But again, don't panic if you don't get a chance to do it and the hard frost hits. It's not a huge deal. Okay, I think that's it for part one. Let me get the rest of this orchard cleaned up. All right, the back orchard is done. I still have to do the side. You can see all the fig trees. And don't worry if you miss a couple leaves. Again, it's just to make your cleanup a little easier, as well as to give the tree as much energy towards the roots as opposed to the leaves. But you can see there's a lot of waste at the end of the year. It's a 7-gallon pail, and you can see it's pretty much full with figs that had to be picked off. Now, one thing that tells me is I should have been better this year about picking off figs that were starting to form but had no chance to ripen. So, you know, anything that was ripening or forming after, I'd say, September 1st, I should have picked off. Probably even earlier than that, but September 1st to be safe. If it was, you know, this size, you can see there's no way that that was going to ripen. So I should have been better about picking those off. That's a lot of energy in that bin that could have gone towards ripening figs that were actually going to ripen in time. So I won't do anything with these. I'll actually toss them in the woods over here for the deer. Oh yeah, the other thing I forgot, stupid me. If you're going to do this, wear gloves. I have latex, or I had latex all over my hands. I just washed it off. I do not have a very bad reaction to latex, at least on my hands. I will say I do have scars up on my wrist from getting the latex there where the skin's more sensitive. My hands don't seem to have the same problem, but if you're gonna do this, wear gloves, because that latex will burn and it'll leave scars. If you have a mild sensitivity to it, you may not even know, but you'll find out, because it'll burn your hands and then it'll leave a scar. My wrist is a more sensitive skin area, and I have a couple scars there from it. So if you're gonna do this, wear gloves. All right, Fisher's over there cleaning up some of the ones I missed, or rotten ones. He's kind of gross like that. Yeah, you can see him. He's picking them up and going, ugh, spitting them out. Fisher, stop that. Yeah, he doesn't listen. But yep, that's part one of getting your fig tree ready for winter. Stay tuned for part two as we get a little bit later into the season here. If you want to take cuttings, now's the time to start. I'll probably wait a little bit longer. I like that tree to be fully dormant, but there's no problem with taking cuttings now to share with people. This wood is lignified enough. In another week or so, these little pieces will all have dropped off, and that tree will be definitely dormant, and cuttings will be a little bit easier, because when you take the cutting, sap won't come out. So it'll be a little bit cleaner. The cuttings you take won't lose as much moisture, because the sap won't be running. But yeah, no problem with doing them now. For my personal use, I'll actually leave the tree intact and not take cuttings until later. But we'll review that in another part of this series here. So part one on PA figs, and keep an eye out in the next couple weeks here for part two of getting your fig trees ready for winter.